In the meantime, the number of injured persons from the accidental drone strike has now reached 81. According to the Deputy Chief Medical Director, Barau Dikko Teaching Hospital, Kaduna, 11 more casualties have been admitted, joining the initial 70, with none released to their relatives yet. We're now joined by Dr. Shuaibu Musa, Chairman, Medical Advisory Committee, Barau Dikko Teaching Hospital, Kaduna. Good morning, Dr. Musa, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, Dr. Shuaibu Musa, welcome to the morning show. Please, could you tell us the situation now at the hospital, at the teaching hospital? The last time we spoke with you, the number of injured persons, according to you then, was 66. Now we're told that the number has increased. What really is the situation? Is the hospital overstretched?
Yes.
Has there been any report of any deaths or complications? And what level of special support is the teaching hospital receiving from government?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for having me this morning. Good morning, viewers. I think the situation has altered a little. First of all, the number has increased from 66 as of the last time we spoke to about 81 victims. A total of 81 victims were seen in this particular hospital. Out of them, one of them had died, unfortunately. Now, of the remaining 80, we took 30 patients to 44 Army Reference Hospital in Kaduna here. And we took 7 of them to one Div hospital because our bed capacity has been overstretched. So, but generally, they are stable at the moment. They are in stable condition. And the government had graciously acted fast in terms of support. They are providing all their medical needs. They are providing for their feeding, nutritional needs, as well as the ongoing psychosocial support that they've been receiving.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Musa, and I can't even imagine what the situation on ground is like in a hospital. However, I'd like you to share with us, if you can, if you have details of demography, because in the video that Nisi Gabriel, our correspondent in Kaduna, had shared, we saw some children, some women. Do you have the numbers in terms of breakdown as to the victims affected or those under treatment currently in the hospital? And then you talk about the government support. We also saw the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Hajia Balarabe, talk about the fact that the government were on top of things. Would this be your assessment, and would you require additional support in the hospital? Because I'm sure that your hands are full right now.
Yes, thank you very much. About the demographics, majority of the victims are actually children and women, very young children. In fact, the last set of 6 that they brought were orphans, less than a year, between a year and 3 months, 5 months, 6 months old, whose parents were killed in the blast. And they were picked and brought to the hospital for assessment. These were the last set of victims we received. Then, of course, there were so many women. In fact, out of those that we operated, the 5 people we operated that did emergency surgery, all of them, except one, were women. So they were mostly women and children that were particularly affected. As about the support, yes, like I mentioned earlier, the government actually indeed carried out its promise. They have come forward to provide all the medical needs, all the consumables that we needed, all the supplies that were required were supplied by the state government. And of course, the Nigerian Army and the Ministry of Defense also came to their aid in support of, with a lot of also support. And of course, the frequent visits that they've received was a sort of psychosocial support, which will make them understand that probably it was a tragic accident.
Well, Dr. Musa, could you take us through the nature of injuries observed? You said 5 persons have had to undergo surgery. What is the nature, the severity of the injury? And after the visits that you referred to by the military, the apologies offered by the Chief of Defense Staff and the Chief of Army Staff, what's your sense of the reaction by the families and the victims?
Thank you. As for severity, yes, many of them came with very severe blast injuries that caused intra-abdominal lacerations of their viscera or their organs. So they had to undergo immediate surgery, and those ones had immediate surgery. Now, there was one that needed intensive care. That was one that unfortunately died. We took him to the intensive care, but he eventually gave up. Now, as per the reaction to the visits, I think it did a very great deal of something, because, in situations like this, people are angry, families are angry, and things are happening. So a visit serves to show them that it was actually a mistake, and the government was there behind them and things like that. It went a long way, because we even noticed some changes in the way the families were even reacting to us as medical personnel. There was remarkable improvement in their demeanor and general sense of acceptance of the events.
All right, Dr. Musa, I hear you in terms of the support, helping psychosocially, but what are other support mechanisms that would be made available to victims, especially for the orphans you've mentioned, the women who have lost their husbands, the victims who would be facing trauma right now, beyond visits? Are there any other plans to help psychologically? Because in addition to their physical rehabilitation, they would also need mental and emotional rehabilitation. I asked the question earlier on, and I'd still like you to answer this. Are you fully equipped? Do you have enough that you require in the hospital? Because this level of patients would not have been seen in the hospital in recent times. So perhaps you would need to have additional support. Are you getting that support, or where would you like that support to come in terms of the other things you need? I would imagine that you would need blood supply, you would need medicines, you would need more nurses. What areas would you require support, if any, and how are you looking to meet this gap?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, the hospital had an emergency response team. If you recall, Kaduna State is, in quotes, let me say, violent state. So much violence, so much incidences. So we were already prepared for these eventualities. So by the time they told us that there was that, all we did was to reactivate our emergency response team, and then mobilized people to come en masse. And this is a multidisciplinary team that had people that had to do with bloods, people to do with supplies, people to do with nursing, people to do with clinical care. So we had a full team. So the moment they came, we were able to triage immediately. In other words, we were able to sort them out into very severe cases, into the milder and the moderate cases. And then we took the severe cases head on. Those that needed transfusion, we were able to get support of blood as well from the National Blood Transfusion Service situated in Kaduna here. So we had full support actually in terms of that. In terms of clinical care, a lot of other professionals also came in to volunteer their support, including those outside the hospital here.
All right, how about psychosocial needs?
So yes, yeah. as per their psychosocial needs, yes. As per their psychosocial needs, you see, it's an ongoing something. It does not end here. In fact, we have produced a list of what this community will require in the long run, and we have given it to the state government. We had outlined that they will need a lot of support, including rehabilitation, including reintegration into the society, including educational support for some of these children. Like I said, many of them were children, and also including things to do with rehabilitation of these young children and orphans. For instance, we are already in touch with Ministry of Human Services in this state, which is like Women Affairs and Human Services. They are the ones in charge of situations like this. So we had already contacted them, and the Honorable Commissioner was active in that, and they are ready. I think they are ready to commence the other things. The other medical psychosocial needs is an ongoing process. It will not just end, in the next few days or few months. It will take a very, very long time to rehabilitate these people so that they do not grow up to see no difference between the Nigerian army and the terrorists, right? So there is the need to integrate them and carefully educate them to become responsible citizens.
Okay, Dr. Musa, beyond medical practice and all the hospital details you've been looking at, you live in Kaduna, which is a hotbed of violence, killings, banditry, kidnapping, either in southern Kaduna or in central Kaduna. As a citizen and as a member of that community in that state, how do you feel, and what will be your advice to government?
Well, like any other citizen in the country living in Kaduna, we know if violence can occur at any time and it can affect anybody. So certainly as a citizen, one will feel that lives are not quite secured in spite of what the government probably is doing. You understand? Probably they will need to redouble their efforts. And to prevent this sort of occurrence, whereby there is accidental attack on civilians, I think they should do their utmost best, right? I understand that I was listening to a program yesterday. They were talking about how it could have happened and how it couldn't have been avoided, being that it was a drone that was used, not a human being who could think, oh, this is a religious gathering, and then stop it. But then they can still do more. I think, as a citizen, like you asked, I think they can still do more, and I will appreciate if they do more to prevent this sort of occurrence. Of course, to protect all of us, not just communities, but even as individuals. Kidnappings are still ongoing. The violence is ongoing almost every time. We receive victims here as well. So I think the government can do a lot to protect the citizens, which is their primary duty anyway.
Section 14, subsection 2, yes.
Absolutely. So tell us about the military. Now, 2 days ago, we had seen the Chief of Army Staff visit the victims, visit the villagers. They'd also made some commitments to victims of the bombing and their families. You talked about the involvement of the government, the role of the government, and the preparation of the hospital. How about the military, the army? Have they approached you? What is their own contribution or perhaps support to the rehabilitation and treatment of the victims? Beyond that, the reports talk about the fact that when the bombs happened, the first one according to the villagers, they used motorcycles to ferry victims to your hospital. And you just mentioned that your hospital is best positioned or at least prepared for emergency situations like this. Is this what's common in your area, whereby motorcycles are the vehicle of choice to transport victims to hospital, or are there better provisions? Just to clarify those two things. So first of all, is the military and the army in particular, as to their support, have they come? What is the promise? How are you working with them? And then the second, of course, is just the state of health or medical provisions in your area. I say this because, like you mentioned, there are many learning points from this particular incident, and if there are ways to better equip or respond to emergency situations like this.
Yes, thank you very much. As per the support by the military, yes, the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, and even the GOC, they were all here, and they pledged to support the families. And in fact, even before the state government support, their own support came very handy in terms of provisions, in terms of funds initiate the treatment. So their response was prompt and I think adequate at the time. As per whether or not the transportation system, you see, those are very, very small villages far into the hinterland. So it was difficult, I think, when the thing happened, for them to summon something. For instance, we do have a rapid response team, like I said, and we have our numbers published all over the places. However, you see, they didn't know. So it took the Commissioner of Internal Security, to inform us that this is what had happened, and they were bringing victims, and then we reactivated the team. So part of the thing, usually, for instance, during the train bombing incidents, we were informed, and then, of course, we moved our people with our ambulances to the place, to the site, immediately with the military. So, like I said, it's not, we were prepared, really. If we had been prepared adequately, if we had been told much earlier, probably we'll have used our ambulances to ferry them to this our site instead of waiting for them to use motorcycles.
Well, I get your point. You say you were adequate.
As for the also...
Okay, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yes, I was talking about as per whether the army was also supporting. Yes, they did. Like I said, if you check some of when our hospitals was being overstretched, it was the army that came to our help. For instance, I said we moved 30 patients immediately to Armed Forces, 44 Armed Forces Reference Hospital, and then 7 of them to one Div Hospital in Kaduna, which is also a smaller hospital. And of course, we'll continue to take care of them even in those hospitals as well.
Well, Dr. Musa, I take special notice of your point that you were adequately prepared. But we know that within the health sector in Nigeria, most teaching hospitals are underfunded, they are under-resourced, and yes, even the best of them, yes, the oldest of the teaching hospitals have issues. Are you saying that at the Dikko Teaching Hospital, you have everything, whatever you require, or are there areas where the hospital will still need government help? So what is adequately prepared? Certainly not.
Of course, okay, fine. Certainly not. We do not have all the resources. That one is obvious. For instance, the immediate thing that one saw in this particular incident was the lack of bed spaces. For instance, this is a 250-bedded hospital, which I think is actually too small for a town like this with this sort of situation where events like this can happen. So I think expansion of this hospital much to a bigger place is something that I can always call the government to do that. And in fact, there is an expansion work ongoing. I think they should complete it so that we'll be able to receive more number of people. I think there are they say about an estimated 9 million people living inside Kaduna. And if it is so, then I think 250-bedded hospital is too small for that. The same thing with the resources, especially human resource. We are aware of the human capital flight out of the country. So it has also affected us, and it is ongoing, As people are dying, some are retiring, and many others are living in droves. So, of course, we will require also human capital input resources as well.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Musa. Thank you for your time here. And I do believe it's important that you share thoughts like this, because we do believe that those who have the power to influence are listening, and they would respond to your call in terms of the needs of your hospital in Kaduna State. Thank you.